Just a reminder before today's programme that if you haven't seen the previous instalment of the Ident review, you can still check it out here on AMTV, where we came right to the present and looked at the 2020 idents used by BBC One. Also be sure to check out the most recent episode of the Ident Review Extra, where we go over to BBC Two, and they took us back to one day in the 60s. And now, here on AMTV, time for our 75th episode of the Ident Review. And this time, we're going to the home video format, to one of the most biggest companies on the planet. It's hard to know where to begin with Disney. We all know they're most renowned for their animated feature films, many of which have become some of the most classic flicks in movie history. But Disney was historically reluctant initially to jump onto the new bandwagon that was home video back in the late 70s and early 80s. However, when they did first pledge themselves to releasing some titles to the home market, it would be on the fledgling DiscoVision format, which would later be rebranded as Laserdisc. And when they did so in 1978, this would be the first ident that would represent them, known by many as Neon Mickey. Well, it's a start, isn't it? Now this ident I've seen a lot of comments from folks who say this used to scare the daylights out of them when they were a child, and in some weird way, I can see why. The music they picked is quite bold and bombastic. It's quite extravagant in a way that might be a little overwhelming to particularly young or sensitive viewers. In terms of this ident's actual design, I mean, it is oh so 70s, and the Neon Mickey central figure is a really interesting idea. I mean, I like the sort of trippy nature to it, but there is something slightly unnerving about seeing this almost hollow version of Mickey Mouse pulsing with multicoloured light, not really moving either. I suppose it's this central figure that also helps contribute to the fear factor that seemingly so many children experienced back in the day. It's not the most interesting ident beyond that, and arguably isn't the most well remembered of Disney's representative output. But while sources claim this ident lasts in some way all the way until 1984, 3 years earlier, in 1981, a brand new sequence was introduced to truly take Disney home video into the 80s. And I shall name this one Disco Disney. You'll see why. Come on, that reeks of disco. Despite disco being pretty much dead by 1981, everything from the bright neon lights, the wavy transitions, even the soundtrack, which is the most disco reworking of When You Wish Upon a Star you'll ever hear. It seems the designers really wanted to strike a big difference with this sequence. Gone is the bombastic, debatably old-fashioned music, and in are neon faces of Mickey and Donald, and cool computer graphics, which of course in the early 80s were all the rage for companies to use. This also seems to have a ton of effort put into it. At a time when video idents were merely a few seconds long to simply display a logo, this one is a full sort of demo reel of what Disney has to offer. You see these brief glimpses of the company's history and output, everything from 1928's Steamboat Willie all the way up until seeing the familiar globe of the Epcot Center. Funnily enough, Epcot was to open on October 1st, 1982, a year after this ident was first used on Disney VHS tapes, so I'm guessing they had already revealed the central globe concept? That's some bold marketing if you ask me. However, in terms of representing Disney, this one does a spot-on job of getting you ready for all sorts of wonderful adventures that await you. But in 1986, things were to change again, with arguably the most recognisable Disney home video ident coming into use. It is, of course, Sorcerer Mickey. man, that takes me right back. This is one of the most simple idents that Disney put out for its home video division, and despite its simplicity, it just works. The image of Sorcerer Mickey from the 1940 movie Fantasia is one of Disney's most iconic images ever, so much so that 80 years after the film's initial release, it is still used heavily throughout the Disney company. So big points for iconography. But the idea that Sorcerer Mickey is using his magic to create the home video logo is charming to say the least. The bold red colour used is an excellent choice, and even though the soundtrack is minimal and clearly created on some sort of 80s synth keyboard, it's melodic enough that every time you start to hear it build, you'll be able to hum along with it, like any classic Disney tune. This is also the ident I remember seeing the most on my many Disney VHS tapes back in the day. Seeing that after I pushed play meant that I was in for a whole world of fun and laughs, and to be honest, I kind of miss seeing it on my Disney movies. Sorcerer Mickey as a home video ident had one of the longest lifespans of the sequences we're going to be looking at today, lasting all the way up in some form until 2001 on some releases. However, like before, new idents would come and coexist with this one throughout the 1990s. So let's take a look at the first of these from 1991, which I'm simply going to call Golden. Wow, okay, can we have that again? Yep, it's really that short. Well, what can I say about this? The fonts are the same, but the colour's now gold instead of red, okay. And instead of even trying to create some sort of a sequence with any kind of journey, it's now just the logo with a rather obnoxious preset of a synth keyboard that sounds like it's about to collapse. Honestly, I can't believe the laziness behind this. How can you go from the start of the 80s when such an effort was put in to really show off Disney Home Video and what it had to offer, to literally just the company logo with some of the most annoying music known to man? Even Sorcerer Mickey with all its simplicity managed to create a strong lasting image in 15 seconds without being boring or irritating. But here the runtime is just 5 seconds, and I only remember this ident for being disappointing, as it made me cover my ears if it was on any of my VHS tapes. A big, big no from me. But let's see if their second ident of the 90s from 1995 could do any better. So here is what I'll call Blocks. Oh, thank God, much, much better. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is actually a proper sequence with some time, care, and imagination thrown into it. On one hand, that was probably one of the most 90s things you've ever seen. Everything from the use of bright colours to the now primitive computer graphics flying around to the 90s arrangement cameo of When You Wish. I mean, listen closely at the beginning and you'll hear it. But this is a true sequence to represent Disney Home Video in the 1990s. Now just Disney videos, of course. Even though it would be seen as simple today, I love the way all of the 3D shapes fly around the screen to eventually form the logo. I remember as a kid I found it truly fascinating to watch. Big, big win from me this one. Thank goodness. However, as the new millennium came about, it was time for change once again within the Disney company, including its home media branding it would seem. So in 2001 we were first treated to what I'm going to call stars. And we've slipped back into boredom and laziness. This ident is so similar to the 1991 version that it's actually worrying. It's annoying too that companies like Disney clearly see their logo as just something to be slapped on at the start with no effort and nothing more. But why? Surely you want people to be interested, surely you want people to be hooked right from the word go, to get them excited for what they're about to watch. That's how I felt about Sorcerer Mickey, and that ident didn't even really do that much. But this is literally the corporate definition of we have to put this here, so let's get it down with as quickly as time as possible. This would be good to throw on at the end of a longer sequence, maybe something similar to the 81 version after seeing a highlight reel of what Disney has to offer, but no, apparently effort is not required in the 21st century. Let's see if things change towards the end of the first decade, when in 2009, the home entertainment brand was changed again, to what I'm going to call Castle. Man, oh man, it just gets worse. Now don't get me wrong, the actual design and visual presentation of this ident I actually really like. The lavish image of the iconic castle of the Magic Kingdom has always been awe-inspiring, and that hasn't changed. but in the past, Disney Home Video had always displayed its own unique sequences different from whatever the main movie studios were using at the time. Here though, this is literally the final image from the movie studio sequence with different music. How incredibly lazy is that? I can understand the point of view about brand uniformity and trying to have everything look the same to help the viewer, but come on, it's Disney. As long as you display the logo or have Mickey Mouse or the Magic Kingdom Castle, people are going to instantly, and I mean instantly, know what they are watching. For a brand that didn't have as much recognition, sure, I get the uniformity angle, but this is Disney we're talking about here. So it's a shame that we're ending this on a bit of a downward note. I mean, I love Disney, as I'm sure many of you guys do, but the lack of effort into their home video idents in the 21st century is just such a letdown. But of course, at the turn of the millennium, DVDs slowly started to become more mainstream and eventually more popular than the older VHS tape format. So before we end today, let's have a quick little look at an ident sequence that would accompany Disney DVD. Okay, this one I find a bit more passable. In a weird way, I could sort of see this as the generation after me's Sorcerer Mickey. The ident is quite simple, like the 86 one. It shows the word DVD being spelled out before Tinkerbell appears to cast some of her magic, just like Sorcerer Mickey does. Now I would argue that Sorcerer Mickey is a better sequence overall, but I can appreciate that I'm biased towards it. But for the DVD generation, I could definitely see that children would have the same excitement and eventual nostalgia for it, just like I did all those years ago. Overall then, after more than 40 years of outputting their movies on home video, how have their representative idents matched up? Honestly, quite the mixed bag. Now to clarify, I haven't gone through every single iteration of Disney Home Video ident here. If I did, we would be here for hours, but I wanted to select the key players and certainly the ones I remembered watching. While some of them seem outdated, like the 78 version, it's a shame that the high effort or imagination present in the 1980s sequences was seemingly cast aside for the most part in the 1990s and 2000s for the sake of quick, flash-in-the-pan idents that merely served to present the brand at the start and nothing more. Idents have been and are still an art form, so no matter whether it's for a television channel, a movie studio, or even a company putting out stuff on VHS, DVD and beyond, I believe the more you treat your idents with care, effort and imagination, the stronger your brand and memorability is when history comes to pass. Quite a fitting way, I think, to close off our 75th episode. And so we've come to the end, but before we go, the final words from our broadcaster. That was all this week for this instalment of the Ident Review. I hope you all enjoyed watching it, and we hope that you tune in next week. Keep an eye on the community tab and the Sunday catch-up for information about this programme, as well as others that we broadcast here on AMTV. But until then, have a good week, and we hope that you'll join us again soon. Good night, and thank you.